This is a lesson on writing techniques. So we're going to look at using DeForest, using sentence starters, and using complex sentences in your writing. You always have to think about your purpose and audience in your writing. So before you do any reading or writing, think about the purpose, why you are writing, and your audience, who you are writing to. You also have to think about presentational and layout features in your texts. And you have to think about style and language, but we will go into more detail on these points in other lessons. The writing process, you have to plan your writing. It's really, really essential that you plan your writing. You have to think about there, you will see at the top why you are writing and who for, which is your purpose and audience. Then you make some notes. You can make them in whichever way you like. Decide on the structure, introduction, heading, ending. And then you need to do the proofreading bit. Read, write, and improve. Rewrite. Now, in the exam, you won't really have time to do this, but this writing process applies to any kind of writing, whether you're writing a 2,000-word essay or the 300 words for the exam. Here are some ideas on how you can plan your writing with the thought bubbles, spidergrams, any way that suits you as long as you plan it. Now, in terms of proofreading, these are the specific things that you have to look out for. There's a SPaG checklist in the middle. Now, spelling stands for spelling, punctuation, and grammar. And that is where most students lose their marks in the exam. So you have to think about all these things. Have I used an appropriate style? Is my work in paragraphs? Do my sentences start with capital letters and end with full stop? This might seem very simple, but if you want to check that your work is correct, that is the way to do it. Ask yourself these questions. Did I check my spelling against words in the question paper? Very importantly, because you will be penalized if your words that they give you the spelling of are spelled incorrectly. Now, there's some punctuation that you should look out for when you are doing your proofreading. Have you used all of these elements of punctuation correctly? Then the commonly misspelled words. Make sure you know how to spell these words. I mean, that's the minimum, really. Then we're going to look at more on proofreading using connectives. So you're not going to just always say but and so, but you can say different things. Now, for example, if you're using something like in addition, it should be in addition, comma, yeah, however, comma, yeah, furthermore, comma, yeah. Then homophones, some people really struggle with those. There, to, no, your, new, right, which, peace, rain, where, for. Here's an example of a letter. You can see there the address at the top, the date underneath, the name of the name or the title of the person you're writing to, yeah, their full address. Then you're going to say sir or madam if you don't know their name, and obviously if you know their name, dear Ms., Mr., whoever. And then we end with yours faithfully. Now remember that when you say dear Mrs. Brooks, you have to use yours sincerely. Yours faithfully is only used when you say sir and madam. Oh, there you go. Surprise, surprise. So there's the introduction, why you are writing, the conclusion, why you were writing again, and say what you want them to do. Very importantly, in letters, you have to say what you want. Okay. Now, to improve your writing, as I mentioned before, there's this DeForest, which is an acronym that's very useful to remember when you are writing. Now, what does it stand for? We've got direct address for D, rule of 3 for the T, and then statistics. And these are all arriving at the same time. So, direct address, alliteration or anecdotes, facts, opinions, rhetorical questions, emotive language, exaggeration, statistics, rule of 3. You need to use at least 2 of these in each piece of writing. Here's an example of direct address. Are you satisfied with your phone provider? Wouldn't it be great if supermarkets gave you more value for money? Now you've got alliteration, repetition of sounds that are similar. Now when there you've got waves washed wistfully. Now sibilance is when alliteration is with the sound S. Facts and statistics you should use. There's an example and another example. Authorities or experts' opinions. There's an example. So she said that blah, 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 blah. Rhetorical questions. What's a rhetorical question? Questions where an answer is not expected, used very often by politicians to attract our attention. Does a fish have lips? How am I supposed to live without you? Are you for real? Then we've got exaggeration or hyperbole, and there are some nice examples. My feet are killing me. I was dying to see you. I worked my fingers to the bone. So used for dramatic effect. So it's nice to remember that. Then we've got emotive language. I'm very happy that you decided to come. You love it. This ghastly idea. The girl was skipping joyfully. And then rule of 3. See it, say it, sort it. That's a fairly new one. And then many others. So the point here is that when things come in 3, they're funnier, more satisfying, and more effective and easier to remember. Most important ones. Now there are many, many more language features, and if you know them and you can apply them in your writing will be better. So I'm also going to quickly show you simile. Similes are always used with like or as. So John is as slow as a snail. He is as cunning as a fox. Where's one with like? Like. Her cheeks are red like a rose. Okay. On the other side, on the other hand, they don't have the as and like. So it's a stronger expression. Yeah. Make it even stronger in the reader's head. A sea of trouble, drowning in debt, for example. Then we've got analogy, where you say something like, you are as annoying as nails on chalkboard. Okay. And then cliches. We've heard of those before, right? Every cloud has a silver lining. Imperative, the way you might speak to a child. Please stand up straight. Please be quiet, stand up straight. Onomatopoeia. Now, this is getting quite, and maybe you might say this is unusual. And in fact, this is for academic writing, probably not the greatest thing to use, but it's good to know what they are, like boing, boing, boing. We've got oxymoron, which is a really interesting one. Because you will say things like smart fool, original copies, seriously funny. You must have heard seriously funny before. Then we've got personification, which is when you say things like the flowers were begging for water. Okay, I'm just going to read out one example. Superlative, my cousin is the tallest. My car is the fastest. Fast, faster, fastest. And then we're going to talk about sentence starters. because this is a way to make your writing more interesting and impress the examiners more, really. Now, a way to start a sentence is with two adjectives. Now, if you don't know what an adjective is, then you have to really go and look at what an adjective is. But there's an example. Bored and confused, the boy stared at his exam. Creepy and dark, the man went back into the house. So that's not too difficult, right? Now we've got examples of sentence starters. Carefully, comma, please note, carefully, comma, John picked up the package. Moaning, comma, the teenager walked off. Shocked, comma, I couldn't move. Bored and exasperated, I stared at his exam. Okay. Then we've got connectives. Now we've actually seen these before, some of them, but there's some more for you. To begin with, then you could start your first paragraph with firstly. After your introduction, your first paragraph firstly, your second paragraph secondly, your third paragraph thirdly. But it will probably be more interesting if you use something other than those ones, like furthermore or similarly. Remember, when you say however, it's something that argues what you said before. Whereas, on the other hand, in comparison, on the contrary. Yeah. Then we've got writing complex sentences. Okay, so this is also something that you have to be able to do in this exam in order to show the examiner the level of your writing. Now, there's a very clear description. The internet is really useful when you need to research something. Yeah. So one chunk of information makes sense on its own and could be written as a separate sentence. That's the main clause. This is a subordinate clause because it cannot stand on its own. When you need to research something, you will have to say blah, 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 something more. Yeah. So it doesn't make sense on its own. Yeah, it needs this main clause. Yeah, to make sense. So you could do it this way around. When you want to search for something, the internet is really useful. You could do that. Or you could put it there in the middle. The internet, which is ideal for researching and shopping, can save you lots of time. The point is, you need to be able to write complex sentences. It shouldn't just be the internet is really useful. Okay? And that, I think, today. So, can you now use DeForest, sentence starters, and write complex sentences? I hope so. Because this is your task for today. Write a letter and an article of your choice. Remember to include DeForest, at least 2 techniques. Use a sentence starter, use sentence starters, and write complex sentences.